discuss on national CSR regarding impact assessments post any of the CSR activity, post any of the projects on the social development. We carry on doing this impact assessment, how exactly that project deliverers will be are there, and how exactly we have impacted to those deliveries on the projects. So, presenting on today's session, we have a speaker, Dr. Shweta Bapat. She is there.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Just let me know once my screen is visible to you, PPT. I hope I am audible properly. So you are on mute.
So let me introduce once, then you can start your session. So Dr. Shweta Bapat, she did her PhD in CSR, and she is also a HOD in Human Resource for Kaveri College of Arts and Commerce. Dr. Shweta is also a president of Business Ethics Foundations, working for how the business is working and what exactly the ethical ethics while we are into the business and we are into the corporates. That is how the Business Ethics Foundation is working for. And she was earlier, she was a management faculty for Suryadat, and also she was a HR coordinator for Symbiosis Pune. She, to her credit, of course, there are 4 publications. She is also in panel with ICSI, Institute of Company Secretaries of India, a premier institution of India for all the company secretaries. And she is also taking continuous regular sessions as an impellent member for BBR crash course from ICSI. And to her credit, of course, she is the prominent reviewer for CSR awards from ICSI. So that's her short introduction. Of course, she has many more feathers into her credits and, of course, her achievements. But I had covered some of the short so that she can actually come in and she can actually go towards the impact assessment, how exactly this impact assessment is working towards the social development. Over to you, madam.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. First of all, congratulations to you for organizing this National CSR conference, and also I'm very much thankful for inviting me for this particular session. So today we will be speaking about overall impact assessment and social indicators which we need to understand about. It has been a good journey for this particular conference, and Pradeep sir has organized it in a very sequential manner, that right from introduction to CSR up to the baseline survey, everything is covered. And I would like to focus on the end part of the CSR, which is now becoming very important rather than saying popular because of the current amendments. So let us see how I can give justice to this. So overall, if we say generally any type of CSR project is to be taken, the first word which is expected from any implementation agency or any company is that of social impact. So social impact, when we say, what exactly we mean by impact? So impact do have 2 types of meaning. That is a negative impact as well as a positive impact, as you all know. But then over here, when we are talking about CSR is actually expecting a social impact, which is a very significant impact and a positive change. That is addressing the pressing social issues. So this is again a very important point, because many of the CSR reports, if you have gone through, the very early CSR reports after 2014 and 15, you might have seen that the impact is shown, but that is not regarding the pressing social issues. It was mainly regarding somewhat going ahead towards the advertisement of the company. And that is why this particular concept has come up now in a very sharp manner, that we need to understand the social impact. And it has to address the pressing issues wherein the government or individual person is unable to cope up with those type of issues. And that is why this particular concept of CSR came into existence, that since the corporates do have their own set of people, their own set of skills, they can definitely utilize them as well as the money for making the social impact. At a very simplistic level, if at all we want to know about social impact, it is the social change, we can say, that an organization can create through its action. We have been learning about the negative impact many times, that because of pollution, because of other related issues, continuously we say the organizations are giving negative impact. But over here, CSR is a best part or best chance corporates which is given for making a social impact in a positive manner. So a social change, which is the expected social change, which will try to take the community one step ahead, can be a social impact. It also refers to an impact that or the effects or even consequences. Now we are going to elaborate this word impact in a larger manner in the subsequent slides. They are likely to be experienced by an equal broad range of social groups. So this is also one of the important point, as we generally say, the first question is how many number of beneficiaries are benefited. So this is a very what we can say, important point as such. So that is again an important thing which we need to consider at the time of social impact, that making an impact on very small group of people may not be considerable, but it must be a broad range of social group on which this particular positive impact is made. Let us talk about social impact of our own organization. Of interventions, the social impact of your organization may include the things that actually happen sometimes after the actual intervention, or affect a wider group of individuals than just the chosen target population. I would like to give one example over that. There was a particular company who were producing actually um, uh, the trucks, and they have decided to give training to the truck drivers, and it was mainly for the sake of making them employable, and then making them self-sufficient, and that is why they have started giving training to the drivers. And it was a particular skill set was expected for that. So what they have decided, rather than giving a training on how to drive trucks on highways and all, they have decided that how to drive trucks on the hilly areas is actually a core problem. So their need assessment was done properly, and then they have decided that yes, we will be giving the training related to how to drive the trucks at hilly areas. Mainly, we have seen the roads in Himachal Pradesh and all these things. So I have assessed that yes, number of people have taken the trainings, and now they are employed, and now they are earning for them, for their family members and all such things. But later on, after 2 years or so, they have found out that a particular person out of them has started his own driving school, and then he started making the impact on the community. So he has also trained few more drivers, and then those drivers are also have started earning. So this is actually an impact which we can identify after certain years. So we have seen that the current amendment also says that you are supposed to assess, or you are supposed to make the impact assessment after 1 year of completion of your project. Rather, after the completion, 1 year must be spent. So this is why the impact is. The company hasn't taken this particular thing into consideration. They had the chosen target, they had done that, they have taken beneficiaries into consideration, they have taken their family members as beneficiaries into consideration, but this was something beyond that. And this particular social impact is actually expected from our uh, CSR types of interventions. So this is how an organization can make an impact beyond the chosen target population. So generally, there is a consensus on the types of impacts that needs to be considered for the chosen interventions. Any particular CSR activity or CSR intervention can give various types of impact. For example, there can be a social impact, there can even be a cultural impact, there can be a demographic impact, there can be economic impact, there can also be socio-psychological impact. So these can be the various types of impacts, and many of the companies do get confused between, are we supposed to consider only social impact? Are we supposed to, can we consider cultural impact? If we have a particular range, then we are supposed to consider all impacts. Economic impact, yes, it is also required to be considered. Unless and until you are making economic impact, there is a less possibility that people will be able to make the social impact. And that is why full range of impact needs to be taken into consideration. Unfortunately, many times CSR projects do also make the political impacts as well. I hope you all are familiar with this particular theory of change, which is a very basic concept of all the impact assessments rather. Inputs, activities, outputs, outcome, and then impact. So generally speaking, when we say CSR project, we generally directly jump on the word impact, but it is not possible directly to jump on the word impact. And that is why this particular theory is required to be understood. First of all, if you see the two things which we have in this particular image are belonging towards my company's plan. That is inputs and activities. And the second part, if you see, there are three things: output, outcome, and impact, which is actually my company's expected result. So if at all I am doing any type of CSR activity, I this particular my plan, that how am I supposed to plan, and then what are the expected results. So inputs can be understood as the resources which we are going to put in for a particular CSR intervention. It can be money, it can be people, it can be tools, it can be skill set, anything. So in order to make a particular possibility, a particular activity possible, whatever I'm putting in can be my inputs. Then it comes to activity. Every single action that I do in my business is actually considered an activity. But over here, when we are talking about CSR, the activity which is going to make a social impact will be considered as the activity for a particular result. Once the activity is done, then we can think about the outputs. Outputs are generally the tangible type of things which we can immediately see immediately after the activity. Outcomes, yes, we can say that if at all there is a behavioral change, if at all there is a sustainable change, then we can say that it is an outcome. And the impact. Impact is actually a total change which we are expecting. This is how any impact assessment, not only the social impact assessment, every type of impact assessment is done with the help of theory of change. Similarly, for CSR also, this theory of change is really very useful. Let us try to understand this theory of change in terms of the questions which we can ask us, and it can become very easy for us to understand for making the impact assessment. So what is the problem you're trying to solve? Must be the first question. As we have seen in the first slide itself, that it must be a pressing issue. You must be trying to solve a particular problem which is actually society itself is unable to solve. And here the companies can make a huge difference, since they have money, since they have people, they have skill set, they do have technology and many more things. So the power is there with the company, and that is why they are trying to solve such problems. So identifying the problem becomes really very important. And as we have seen in yesterday's baseline survey itself, that how we can identify the problem which we need to answer. This can be the first. This can be the answer of first question. So, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Problems are really having a very good range, and you need to identify which one you are choosing. Then you can choose your key audience. Again, the range of audience can also be very huge. Here, you need to understand, you need to consider that what you are going to whom you are going to address. So there will be the key audience on which you will have to keep watch, a close watch, so that your project is making an impact. Then the next question which we can answer is, what is your entry point to reaching to your audience? Many times it happens that reaching audience itself becomes a problem. For example, people do go ahead with a particular project in the rural areas. And in rural areas, there are different types of politics which are already prevalent. And these politics do become a barrier for most of the companies to attend form such activities, the CSR activities. So this is particular thing which we need to understand. How are you going to decide, and how are you going to reach to your audience? Here I would like to quote one example which I have gone through, which I have heard from a particular company itself, that they had a particular education program for kids, for the slum area people. And they have approached all those parents, and they have convinced them that how this program is going to be beneficial for them and all these things. And on the day of program, the team was convinced that there will be at least 30 to 35 children in front of us. And surprisingly, there was no one. Not a single kid was there. So they thought that, I think there is some miscommunication happening, and that is why people are not there. So again, the team went and met all the parents and all these things, and they have found out that people are now asking that what are we going to get if we send our kids to your program. So if such a situation is happening, then even if they do not understand that what they are going to get out of it, they have misinterpreted that the company is going to get funds and they are supposed to run this particular activity. So that was not the situation. And here it becomes a problem that we need to reach the audience. Only communicating to the audience is not enough, but convincing them, telling that what they are going to get becomes important over here. Then the next question we can see, what steps are needed to bring about the change. For example, again, if we take the same example over here, that if they themselves are not convinced that they are going to get something out of it, then this should be the first step, that you need to convince people, and then thinking about the impact. Once, if at all, they are coming to your place of activity, then only there is possibility of making the change. Then jumping to the next point is, then it starts with measuring the effects of your work. Unless and until you have an audience in front of you, you will not be able to make the change, definitely. And then what are the wider benefits of your work? As we said just now, impact, effect of a particular CSR activity will be only on those who are in front of you. But benefits can be to more number of people. For example, certain companies do take certain activities for the lady who is sitting at home. And if at all that lady is getting benefited, definitely her house gets benefited. So this is a wider benefit of your work. And then at the end, what is the long-term change you see as your goal? If at all we answer all these questions, it will become very easy to make any type of impact assessment in a manner of in a theory of change by using this particular methodology. Let us try to understand certain features of social impact, which I feel is important, because when we are trying to understand the social impact indicators, we must have certain things in hand. So although the impacts are often thought of as undesirable, as the impact word itself talks, or it has a negative line to it, it is generally undesirable or detrimental in nature. They may also be desirable or beneficial, and this particular point has been proven by CSR activity itself. So the impact assessment must always explore the full range, both positive to negative consequences. So there can be a full range of negative as well as positive consequences of the action taken. So what can be the range? Either there will be a direct positive impact, there can be an indirect positive impact, there can be no impact. That is also a possibility, that it hasn't made any impact. There can be direct negative impact, and there can be indirect negative impact. Here I would like to give one particular example of indirect negative impact. A few years back, when there was a particular initiative taken by government of building toilet blocks. During that time itself, the CSR spend was made mandatory, and it has happened that in those 2 years, many of the companies, if at all you go through the reports of various companies during 14, 15 or 15, 16, you will find that n number of companies have built toilet blocks because they were getting CSR benefit out of it. And they have built toilet blocks, but the sanitation facility and all the things were not taken care by all of them. Many of them definitely have taken care, but some of them haven't taken care of all these things. And later on, those toilet blocks have become a septic tanks. And because of that, there was a huge problem related to the sanitary things and all, and it has made a negative impact on the health of people. So this particular negative impact was not taken into consideration at the time of building the toilet blocks and all, and it was later on also not taken into consideration by those companies who have just completed or just done a tick mark of their CSR activities. So this is how a direct positive impact up to indirect negative impact, there can be a full range of impact. And this is what we are supposed to take into consideration. Going ahead with next feature of social impact, although the impacts are often described as caused by prior intervening innovations, in reality, they always interact with original cause in a reciprocal process, either immediately or after some time lag. So as we have seen one example, that there is a time lag, and after that you can see the positive impacts or negative impacts. Definitely it has a meaning, and we can see through current amendment that it is taken into consideration. Then the third feature can be the purpose of social impact assessment is basically to enable the policy makers to anticipate and plan for potential impacts before they occur, and then act to prevent or mitigate the undesired impacts. As a result of such impact management efforts, some predicted impacts never actually occur. So this also needs to be absorbed by the company, that those predicted impacts haven't taken place. But at the same time, the impact assessment becomes important so that we can identify what else or what other impacts have the company's intervention made. So this is also a point required to be taken into consideration. Let's try to focus on the continuous cycle of measurement. First is estimating the impact, as we generally do in all such situations, conducting the due diligence pre-investment. Then there will be a planning impact through the strategy. So basically deriving metrics and data, then data collection methods needs to be identified to monitor the overall impact. And over here we need to understand what will be the social impact indicator so that we can try to get the data. Then there can be monitoring impact. So measuring and analyzing the impact to ensure the mission alignment and its performance. Monitoring becomes really very important and unavoidable type of things. And then evaluating the impact. So understanding post-investment social impacts of an intervention or investment becomes important. Though we say that impact assessment is done, it is not getting over here. It is actually a cycle, because again, this particular feedback or evaluation becomes an input for the next estimation of impact. This actually we know why social impact assessment, because as per the rule of the new rule, the impact assessment report shall be placed before the board and shall be annexed to the annual report on CSR also nowadays. We also need to ensure that impact assessment is undertaken wherever applicable through an independent agency mainly, and to review the impact assessment reports placed before the board. Most of the times it also happens that few companies do have their own impact assessment system within the organization, and for few of the selected projects only they go for the assessment. Even if they are not coming under the purview of the law, still some companies do have this good practice of going ahead with impact assessment even before this particular rule came into existence. It would generally be a good practice to identify the need for the project before approving its implementation, and the need identification for the project generally ensures that the act as a basic parameter while carrying out the impact assessment. So that need assessment report actually helps an impact assessment person that what exactly was identified and how the impacts can be measured. The details of need and impact assessment, if any, for the project undertaken by the company are required to be included in the annual action plan, as we know, which is required to be approved by the particular board and all. Annual plan also has a mention of a fixation of who shall do the impact assessment, for which project they should do, and what can be the timeline. Every company having the average CSR obligation of 10 crore or more pursuant to section 135 of the Act, and in each preceding financial years, it shall undertake an impact assessment through an independent agency for their CSR projects having the outlay of 1 crore or more, and which have been completed not less than 1 year before undertaking the impact study. So this is the current amendment which we know, and recently I hope every one of us have received the FAQs also, in which they have made many things very clear. I would like to take you to a particular journey of understanding the social impact ecosystem. Now, one thing which is required to be kept in mind, that this ecosystem is about the social impact and not only about the CSR social impact or the social impacts of the CSR projects only. So let us try to understand. If we see that the beneficiaries are there, and from beneficiaries, what is moving upwards is actually the impact data. So how it is important for us, and what exactly is moving from upward to downward is the funding resources. So there can be impact funders from whom it is reaching towards the beneficiaries. Impact funders can be various people. There can be government, there can be family offices, there can be pension fund, provision fund, many of them, because it is a total social impact system. Then it comes to impact managers. So here we can place ourselves that we are actually trying to manage the impact. So there can be incubators, there can be universities, there can be accelerators, foundations, many individual entities who are actually trying to make the impact, or rather trying to manage the impact. Then there can be the impact makers, that is for profit organization, not for profit or profit organizations, social enterprises, and then lastly it comes to beneficiaries. So overall, if we see, there are 4 layers of particular ecosystem, that is impact funders, impact managers, impact makers, and then the beneficiaries. So this is how the whole ecosystem works, and even CSR is actually no exception to this particular system. These are different sectors associated with social impact, because nowadays many of us do have various entities which are getting involved into social impact. So impact investing is one part, social impact related to health is another part. Social impact consulting is also one of the important point, because many of the companies are going through this and they are ready to take the consultation, because they do not have expertise in every field. So if at all they are having 2 to 3 focus areas, they might not have expertise in all the fields. Then there can be corporate social impact. There can be international development also. Nowadays, we all know that there are certain clubs like Lions Club, Rotary Club, Rotaract Club. Those are actually doing the social work in a very huge manner. Many of the companies are trying to follow the same process, and they are also trying to go ahead with such patterns. Environmental sustainability, as we all know, there are sustainable development goals which are actually giving you the inputs for CSR. Then public sector, public policies are also one of the important sectors of social impact. Education definitely is a very important and very, what we can say, money catching thing. Money catching in the sense CSR funds actually. Human rights, civil rights, non-profit and social enterprises are also involved to a larger extent than the social entrepreneurship. So we can say that these are the various sectors which are associated with the social impact. This navigator is actually a very important point, because many times convincing our investors become difficult for various CSR professionals. See, those who are actually into the companies, they do not um, get permission to do a particular CSR activity just because it is not showing the impact. So here it comes how a particular how the navigator can help us out. At a first step, if we can see activities which are carried out as planned. So the planning and preparation is beyond the first step, we can say. First step over here itself is starting as the activities are which are carried out as planned. You can see the output has 3 different steps. Then there is an outcome which also has 3 different steps. And then there is an impact. So at the first stage, the planned activity is actually implemented. Then the second step is reaching to the target groups. If at all you have reached to the target group, you have crossed the second step of your output. Then there is target group accepts the offer. As discussed in the earlier example, that though you feel that you have reached to the target group, it is also very important that your offer is accepted by the particular group. Here we can say that we are reaching towards the output. The next step is the target group changes their attitude or develop a new skills. Generally, a testing type of thing or an examination or the observation method is used to understand whether they have changed their attitude or whether they have adopted certain new skills which you are trying to teach them. Then there can be a fifth step, that is the target group changes their behavior. Again, there is a huge difference between these two. Changing the attitude, changing or learning the new skills and making it a habit, making it as including it as behavior is actually a huge difference, because we also as an individual know that though we know many things, we do not make it as a behavior, and this particular change is expected in the society. And then the last step of outcome itself is the target group living conditions are changes. So if you are concentrating on a particular target group, you need to check whether that group has changed their own living conditions or not. If at all you can you say that yes, the living conditions are changed, then actually we are reaching towards the change which can become an impact, which is actually social change. But that comes at the seventh step. So right from implementation of activities, reaching to the impact is actually a huge journey for any type of CSR activity. Social impact indicators. Many times I've come across the problems that the indicators itself or indicators are not identified properly, and that is why social impact is not evaluated or the impact assessment is not done properly. So let us try to see some examples. For example, the social impact indicators are actually specific, measurable things that you plan to track and which allow you to assess and assess the effectiveness of your intervention. So specific and measurable becomes very important because many times it is not specific. We are just trying to make an impact, and that is not specific one. If at all it is not specific, if at all it is not measurable, then how are you going to make the impact assessment? For example, hospital facilities. If at all a company is claiming that we are trying to increase the hospital facility, what exactly they are trying to increase? Are they trying to build more number of hospitals? Will it be considered as a hospital facility? Is it going to make an impact? May not be. Checking whether the number of hospital beds in the community per 1,000 population. This is just an example. There can be another example, maybe per 500 of population or maybe 200 of population, depending on the population in that particular area, then the facilities in that particular area. So if at all you are trying to consider that whether the hospital beds available in the community per 1,000 population is to be checked, then only we can say that yes, it is a measurable impact. It is a specific impact. Giving hospital facility is not only thing which we can consider for the impact. You need to identify the variables which we can change. Taking another example, the indicators are defined for a specific organization. For a specific organization will be dependent upon the access and ability to collect certain information and the audience to whom these indicators will need to be communicated. So if we take another example over here, Hospital facility is one of the important points which we have taken. But if at all a company is trying to take medical services as their activity, what can be the impact? So over here, number of practicing physicians in the community per thousand population can be an indicator for understanding the impact of medical services. It is not only the bed, but if at all there are no doctors available, then there is no medical service as such. So this becomes a social impact indicator for a medical service. This is how defining impact indicators become really very important. The best way to define the organization's social indicators is to refer back to the social model's theory of change and theory of action. These elements of social model should outline the key activities and interventions that you might wish to measure and corresponding the outcomes you are aiming to achieve. Correspondence is also very important. Communicating the intervention and its impact really becomes important, because unless and until you communicate it, the beneficiaries don't understand it, even the board do not understand it, and it may become a problem, or it may be interpreted in a manner that the CSR funds are already spent and did not make any impact. The purpose of social indicators itself is to measure the output and outcomes achieved by your organization. If you can measure the outputs and outcomes, then only we can think about impacts. Creating a clear evidence base for your social model becomes important over here. Here are certain examples of indicators. Not necessarily all are social indicators. These are just the examples of indicators. So some of them can be even economic indicators, which are definitely useful for impact assessment, as many times many companies do go ahead with changing or making the change or making the impact on the economic part of our beneficiaries. So for example, cost of living. So consumers price index for the community is actually an indicator of cost of living. For example, voters registration. So proportion of population aged and older who are currently registered voters in the community can be the indicators for voters registration. Then women's earning opportunity. What can be the indicator? The ratio of annual earnings of females to males in the community. Here there is a requirement of the comparison, because we are trying to talk about women's earning opportunities. If males are getting more earning opportunities in a particular area, then this needs to be taken as a ratio. So there can be various indicators like this. Each and every project, each and every intervention needs to be identified, their variables needs to be identified, and then their indicators needs to be identified. Yes, so this is another important part of my presentation. It is basically what can be considered as impact becomes an issue many times. So if at all, in a convenient manner, if we say, conceptualizing social impact is a change in any one or more of the following. There can be even more than this, but this I have taken into consideration, which are more impact making things. People's way of life. People's way of life, that is how they live, how they work, how they play and interact with one another on day-to-day basis. If your intervention, your CSR project is making the change in the people's way of life, definitely it can be an impact. If at all you are able to make changes in their culture, that is their shared beliefs, their customs, their values, language, or dialects. If you are trying to add anything into it, if at all you are trying to correct certain things which are fundamentally wrong, then definitely you are making an impact. Are you trying to make an impact or make a change in the community, its vision, its stability, its character, its service, then the facilities provided to the communities? If you are trying to upgrade any of these, yes, it is a positive impact. Then their political system. The extent to which people are able to participate in decisions that affect their lives in a huge manner. So the level of democratization that is taking place and the resources provided for this particular purpose is really very important. A very good example for this particular point, I would like to suggest all the participants to watch a documentary on Hivre Bazaar. Hivre Bazaar is a place wherein there is Mr. Bapat, who has taken a large initiative. It is not a CSR project as such, but how a village can become self-sustainable. That is a best example for this particular political system and how it has made an impact on their villagers. So I would really like you all to see the documentary. It is available on YouTube, and you can just have a benefit of it. Are you trying to make any impact on their environment, the quality of air and water people use, the availability and quality of food they eat, the levels of hazard or risk, dust or noise they are exposed to? Are you trying to reduce any of these? The adequacy of sanitation, their physical safety, and their access to and the control over the resources. If you are trying to make an impact on some of these, the things needs to be extended, and certain things, hazards, risk, and all needs to be decreased. Then health and well-being. If you are trying to make a change in their health, health is a state of complete physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being. So this is very important. Generally consider health as only limited to the medical reports, which is a thing, because just because a company can show that they do take things which are related to medical reports only. That is not the case. Physical, mental, social, as well as spiritual well-being needs to be considered, and not merely the absence of diseases or infirmity can be considered as health and well-being. Are you trying to make an impact in their personal and property rights, particularly when people are economically affected or experience personal disadvantages, which may include a violation of their civil liberties? So many times, making them aware about their rights itself can make a huge change in their life. Their fears and aspirations, their perceptions about their safety, their fears about their future, of their community, of themselves, of their family members, and their aspirations for their future and the future of their children becomes really very important. So are you going to make any impact on all these things? Yes, it will be considered as a social impact. Should be focused on the significant impact more. It should use appropriate measures and information. It should provide quantification wherever feasible and applicable. It should present social impact in a manner that can be understood by the decision makers and community leaders itself. One important point over here I would mention is not all the impact assessments are quantifiable, because quantification is not possible in case of quality. And we are actually trying to make impact in a qualitative manner through CSR. So quantification is possible in some of the things which are tangible and all. For example, absence of diseases. Yes, it is quantifiable. We can have pre-medical reports, then a particular medical treatment or awareness camp or so, and then the medical reports again. So that can be one of the things which is quantifiable. What about the mental health? How it can be, how is it quantifiable? It is not quantifiable at all. And that is why observation method and all these methods do give you an impact assessment for the sake of qualitative impacts which you are trying to make. It is actually not the quantitative impact we are trying to um, concentrate on. It is not only the number of beneficiaries which we need in our reports, but it is the quality and the change which we have made. Impact assessment, as we all know, social impact assessment includes the process of analyzing, monitoring, and managing the intended and unintended social consequences, both positive and negative. If planned interventions like policies, programs, plans, projects, and any social change processes invoked by those interventions, then those need to be considered in social impact assessments. Its primary purpose is to bring about the more sustainable biophysical and human environment. As we all know that CSR is just a one small step towards sustainability. We are supposed to reach to a great extent if we consider all those SDGs, which we are ideally supposed to achieve by 2030. It also ensures, the impact assessment actually ensures that the development interventions are informed and taken into account the key relevant social issues. It also incorporates a participation strategy for involving a wide range of stakeholders. And that is how we can say that the social impact assessment is becoming more and more successful. It ensures that the development interventions, sorry, it is a repetition, so at a micro level, at medium level, and at different levels, an impact assessment can be done. Micro level, if we see, it is on individuals. Medium level, that is a group of people, maybe institution, maybe organization, which is a limited group of people we can see. And at national and international, political and legal systems. Yeah. So here I would like to focus on SIA, that is social impact assessment. Ideally, the SIA should be an integral part of other assessments also, which includes environmental impact assessment. Sir, I think somebody is on mute. Kindly mute. So will you please mute the other person?
Now you can proceed. It's done.
Okay, yeah. So I was talking about the SIA part of it. So environmental impact assessment can be one of the parts. Project, program, and policy evaluation must be another important part. Hazard assessment, many of time we miss these two, hazard assessment and risk assessment. We generally try to concentrate what is good, but we have to see what are the hazards, what are the risk assessments. One example I would like to quote over here is, I had visited one of the projects for making an impact assessment, And there it was a company has tied up with BIF. We all know how BIF works and how they are trying to make impact. And they have a company had adopted a village wherein the BIF was involved, and they have made an impact that all the uh, cows in that particular area were facing the problem of the feeding because it was a root area. So for 2 to 3 months, they were getting all these things, and after that, they had a problem. Life has given them a solution that how they can, what all they can grow in their fields, and how it can be utilized for their cows as a feeding for a particular year. Only thing was, this particular thing was to be done while cows are in the backyard itself. They are not supposed to go outside for eating anything, the natural grass which is growing. Here, the overall economic impact assessment was great because cows have started giving more milk than what they used to get when they were sent outside for eating and all these things. But then the risk assessment, hazard assessment was not done. The cows which were at the backyard itself had no exercise at all, and they were given the feeding which was made in their backyard itself. And the milk value, the nutritious value of milk got reduced because whenever cow goes and eat all types of grasses and all types of leaves when they are into open yards, they do know what they are supposed to eat, and they are eating all those things, which actually increases the nutrition value of the milk. Over here, the impact assessment, economic impact assessment was giving huge success, but at the same time, the risk assessment was not done, and it was giving a negative points to that particular project. So this particular thing also we need to take into consideration. Then the cultural impacts, many times for the sake of economic impact, we do hamper the cultural impact in a negative manner. So all such things needs to be taken into consideration while doing SIA. What are the stages in social impact assessment? So describing the relevant human environment or areas of influence and baseline conditions, developing an effective public plan to involve all potentially affected members of public, describing the proposed action and policy change and reasonable alternatives, scoping to identify the full range of probable social impacts, then screening to the determined boundaries of SIA. This is also a very important point. This actually is related to the boundaries which we need to take into consideration. There is an impact assessment which requires to be made, but it becomes important to understand that the boundaries also needs to be decided. Why we need to decide the boundaries? Because unless until we decide the boundaries, we will now not be able to establish a control on the impact assessment. And responses to impacts is also important. And developing, monitoring the plan and mitigation measures is also one of the important stage of social impact assessment. So here are some of the advantages which we already know. Identifying the affected groups becomes important. Aligning the aligning peers and winning the trust is possible through social impact assessment. Avoiding adverse impacts is also possible if at all you are doing social impact assessment on a regular basis. If at all you are only trying to do it, it cannot be possible. Enhance the positive impacts, that is SIA preparation also helps in identifying the measures to maximize and share and reducing the cost. But all a proper social impact assessment is made, it is also becomes possible to reduce down the cost for the projects. Getting the approvals faster, definitely one of the very important point for all the CSR professionals over here. This is the process, as we had discussed the stages: defining an impact area, identifying the information and data requirements and their sources, involve all affected stakeholders, because many times we only concentrate on beneficiaries and not all stakeholders. This is really important because many times the impacts made by our own CSR projects are beyond our beneficiaries. Then conducting screening, carrying out scoping in the field, prepare a socio-economic profile of baseline conditions, then survey of host population. This is extremely important, survey of host population, and not to rely on the earlier surveys or pre-published material basically. Identifying and assessing the impacts and developing a mitigation plan. 9-step may not be required in all the cases, but sometimes it becomes important to have a mitigation plan also. Aligning impact assessment with SDGs. This is another important point which we need to take into consideration, because SDGs to be the ultimate aim of any CSR activity, any CSR spend. And if you can align your impact assessment with the help of SDGs, then it can give more value to your impact assessment report, definitely. This tool, I guess you all know that the impact assessment tool itself, it consists of mainly 5 phases: gathering your forces, defining, and drawing the lines, sorting of SDGs, assessing your impact, and choosing your strategy forward. These guidelines are already there in impact assessment theme itself, that is involving a diverse public. As we discussed, identifying and involving all potentially affected groups and individuals becomes important. For example, in one of the company, they had taken a project which was related to increasing the iodine levels in women. It was seen that those women are not taking proper healthy intake, and that is actually affecting on their health. And there was very low levels of iodines in all those females. They have tried to make them aware about how the iodine is important for them and all these things. They have tried to replace certain things like salt and all, but till the time company was providing the salt and all, they have gone with a new type of salt, and then later on they gone back to their earlier habit. Here onwards, the company has given a very innovative type of idea to increase their iodine levels. What they have done, they have observed that each and every lady in that particular village is using this bimbi. So if at all they can do something for that, then they could have done it easily. So what they have done, they have made a particular glue in which the iodine was included. And because of glue, they used to use the bindis every day. Slightly, they have noticed that it is becoming a change. And after the assessment of 1 year or so, they have said that yes, it is making an impact. And this is the way sometimes you have to take into consideration all the diverse and all the diverse activities to make an impact on a particular CSR field. Then analyzing impact equity. This is also important because clearly defining or clearly identifying who will win and who will lose, and emphasizing vulnerability of underrepresented groups becomes important, because many times when you are into rural areas, this actually becomes a problem. Focus of assessment, it must be it should be considered that the issues and public concerns are really count, and not those which are just easy to count. Many impact assessment reports unfortunately talks about whatever is countable. Whatever is difficult to count is left over. So that shouldn't happen actually. Identifying the factors, assumptions, and defining its significance is also very important. Providing the feedback on social impacts to the project planners is important, because they can make the changes and they can solve the problems accordingly. Establishing monitoring and mitigation program may not be required for all, but wherever there is an adverse impact, definitely the mitigation plan requires to be implemented. And then plan for you're going to make a report based on the data, and that is why you need to concentrate more on the data gathering. The structure of the report must be a brief introduction of CSR should be there in the impact assessment reports. Its history should be there. The background of the company must be there. Here, when we are saying background of the company, it is not the company profile which is expected. But if at all you are talking about a particular area, that is a focus area, or a particular project which is coming under a particular focus area, how the company is connected with this particular focus area needs to be elaborated over here. The brief information about all CSR initiatives of the company, just for the sake of introduction, just letting the people know what all company does, this should be included in the report. Then the discussion of the methodology, objectives, and the study design must be in detail. Alignment of sustainable development goals is definitely unavoidable. Then the observations and recommendations based on each project must be elaborated in a proper manner. It should not happen that the negative points are eliminated purposely and only the positive points are projected in the project, but it should be both. Maybe the concentration on the negative points can be little lesser. The concluding remarks about the study conducted and the recommendations for the further developmental opportunities. So this is how an impact assessment report should be. These are some of the references which I have used for this particular PPT and overall my learnings also. So with this, I would like to end my presentation over here. Thank you so much for your patient listening, and I hope I have given a justice to this particular session. Thank you so much from my side.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Over to you.
Thanks, Shweta ji, for so much detailed information on how the impact assessment is to be carried forward. Floor is open for the QA actually. Once yes. People let us see if someone is having some of the queries in regard to impact assessment.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sitali. Of course, it's a very much detailed one, and very meticulously you have narrated how exactly that impact assessment is. I need to cover some of the good points which you have covered actually. See, once you were discussing regarding that the positive impact and the negative impact, that is for the direct impact and indirect impact. How whenever we are planning for any of the project likewise, or whenever we are getting any of the impact assessment, we somehow miss, which is very much essential because of this economic indicators and all those things. We are always running towards the cash cow. We are not at all looking out at whether this cash cow will remain there with us or not. That should be there actually. The example of toilets, or if I narrate one of the story in one of the book I was reading, uh, one of the social development project was there in this thing MP, and what they did is ladies used to actually go somewhere 10 to 11 kilometers away from the from their village area to fetch the water uh, in their buckets and all, whatever the utensils they are using. So what that organization did actually is they somehow placed that particular well in the village area itself, and now the ladies are not at all going towards those 10 kilometers or 12 kilometers. But slowly and steadily, uh, the cases for the health issues goes on increasing, and people were not aware about this, that what can be the primary cause of this. But one of the fellow from their village area, he asked why exactly it is happening. Now our ladies are not at all going to those 10 kilometers walk and all. And they were, it's been actually very much profitable thing that they are, or I must say there is a good impact for that, having a well inside that village area. Then the ladies narrated some of the stories. See, you guys or you people were thinking that this is a problem area for us. But although it was not a problem area for us, we, the ladies, we actually got that particular 1 hour of time to discuss among all the ladies. That is only the time period which we got during all 24 hours of day for socializing with other women. And now our socialization or our time period is nowhere actually because of the well in the village. So once we created certain solutions for the people, we actually need to think regarding the people. How how exactly see solution can be materialized that okay, we will be giving them the wells which is very much nearby, which can be 4 kilometers or which can be 5 kilometers, or if at all there is a well, the community activities will be there across the well, so that
Correct.
all can join in and all can actually gather there. That is
Right.
social indicator of socializing those ladies is being neglected. So
That is what
whenever
I
we
was
are
saying
trying,
about the quantitative and qualitative part of it.
that
So
is
what
what
you said, correct, it was a quantitative, definitely. It was making a quantitative impact, but the quality was lost.
quality was lost. That health issues keeps on coming, and it got increased also in that particular area. So I somehow relate that okay, see whenever we are doing planning any of the activity, we are not taking these points as in consideration. Whenever we plan, although you have narrated that okay, so sustainability has to be taken care of, but that 360-degree idea of the sustainability or SDG goals shall be there actually. Although we are mapping it towards our activities, but what we should do is we should first of all we should understand what all those goals are and what this particular activity is going to achieve among those 17 goals, which all we can actually make it to map to that particular activity. And that is how the things are working for. You have taken consideration that how to go for a risk mitigation and how to go finding out the hazards. It is also coming under the SDGs also. So this we need to actually understand first, that whenever we are planning, either, of course, even the impact assessment also, this goes with the planning, implementation, execution, assessment. For planning of the impact assessments also, we are doing the same thing, doing this particular exercise. But what we missed out actually is, we always missed out the biggest impediment for any of the impact assessment is we are not actually defining any metrics, how to go for it. And once we are not defining the metrics to go or evaluate, then it is very much difficult to go for an impact assessment. We should we should understand about the what is the outcome and what is the impact actually. Outcome is always the numbers which we are running for. Every organization, every social development activity is running behind the this thing, numbers of people, those who are coming in, but they are not at all going towards that impact. How the society by large is going to actually get advantage after 5 years or after 10 years of so. What can be the better point of that particular activity? That we need to take into consideration. Rest, thank you to all. Thank you to all patiently listening to her, and thank you to Madam for narrating how the impact assessment is. Uh, Madam has taken one of the consideration on the health indicator. I need to end up with this thing that we always in a hospital we count how many OPD members are there. That is not the point of indication for impact assessment. Never been. We have to count on how the disease can be eradicated by that particular area. So eradicating the disease is the primary goal of or the impact of that particular activity, not the number of patients which are coming to the hospitals. Number of the patients are coming to the hospital is an economic indicator or can be a business for profit can be the indicator for that, but not the impact. So thank you to all. And if any queries are there, please let me know, or let me see the chat box. Some queries are there.
Yeah. No, there are no queries. Thank you so much, everyone.
Showing the impact can be given. Rita ji, I can share it to you.
Pradeep sir, can I ask something?
Yeah, please.
So just wanted to check with ma'am if she has any kind of example of impact study that was done in education, especially for primary school or Anganwadi. If she has got any kind of a case that she can discuss briefly. Because she has discussed that. Yes, ma'am.
Right. I had been a part of one of the education, this was primary, but then it was mainly for those students who are into, who are learning into a government schools and are coming from a very, very poor background. So there was an impact assessment done, and that particular program was mainly on the sex education, because many of the students have used to leave the schools at a very early stage. If girls or boys was not a difference, because it was not related to the sanitation part of it. But mainly those people had a very weird type of family background, and that is why they were leaving. And this particular implementation agency, which was having a lot of psychologists and all, had taken lot of sessions regarding this. And then it was seen that people have started coming. In fact, people have shifted to that particular school just for the sake of this type of education which they are getting. And otherwise, it was really very difficult for them to get this type of education related to all such problematic issues in the other government schools. And definitely this program was replicated by an NGO in various schools nearby then onwards. So it was a really very nice made by that.
The name of the NGO, ma'am?
It was an NGO in Pune, basically.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you so much.
Sitalji, I can share you the need assessment, the sample need assessment from all some of the corporates or even the government of India examples too. I have some of the reports, but in those reports, what you will get actually is what were the methodology and how the change is being done by the way of numbers only, or somewhere they have narrated that okay, the societal change is there for these pointers. That's it. But the way our speaker has actually narrated, that is the one best actually way out to go for actually planning of the impact assessment. She has narrated not only that. See, whenever you go with the reports, it's a 5-pager or 8-pager report only. No one is going for this thing. On the board reports, people are not reflecting all the stuff. They are coming with either the 12-pager report or 8-pager report like such. And in those 12 pages, first will be the introduction of that, then the project deliverers will be there, then third will be that actually the output, and fourth will be the impact. The design is such. All of the corporates, they are doing the same thing. Okay. But I will share it to you. There they are coding the numbers actually. This many changes, this many students have to join in.
even the project which Madam is Shweta Madam is talking about, they might have reflected the same thing. So this many children have actually participated for this many period, and this is actually the outcome that they are now shifted towards this particular thought or this particular design of thought. That is how all the impact assessments are there. So, but Shweta ji has taken today's session that how we need to plan for designing an impact assessment exactly whenever we are going for any of the projects. I will be sharing that to you post 6th of September if you are looking out for that. That I will.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other queries? Please let me know, or I don't feel. So thanks, Shweta. Thanks for you again, and stay connected for our CSR activities. With coming up activities, we are planning for some of the other activities too in line of this. Okay, and thanks to all viewers here, and thanks to all our evaluators.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for patiently listening. Okay.